Hello everybody, so this video is going to be over methods used in priming research. So one thing that is essential for priming to be effective when used as a method is that the participant has to be unaware of the potential influence of the priming task. All right, and that's crucial. In fact, Barge, who's kind of like the godfather of automaticity research, has even written about how the most crucial element is awareness or lack of awareness of potential influence. You can be aware of the stimulus, but as long as you're unaware of how the stimulus might affect you, priming effects can still occur. Now, I will make a really quick caveat that in the last, about 5 to 10 years, priming research has come under fire. You've got 30 years of research showing that there are priming effects. So, for some of us, the conclusion we're coming to is that priming effects are really small, or at least methodological priming effects are really small. And Barge has always admitted that, meaning that many things can push them around, which makes it incredibly hard to replicate them, which is a problem. But that doesn't necessarily suggest that they are not a thing. Okay. Now, methodological techniques of priming participants. Now, again, remember, the crucial element is that they can't be aware of the influence of the prime. So all priming methods require subtlety. They all require subtly making people think of the concept that they're trying to prime. So if you're trying to prime competition, all right, you have to subtly get that information accessible in memory. You can do that in a couple ways. You can either use subtle supraliminal methods. That's supraliminal, all right, kind of like the car, the Supra, all right, supraliminal, all right, or subliminal. So if we're using supraliminal methods, then participants are aware of the stimulus that they're being primed with. They're just not necessarily aware of how that stimulus might affect them. So, for example, in one classic study now done by Kay and who was on that one? I'm not entirely certain. They primed people with competition simply by having a briefcase in the room. All right, so cues of the business or the category of business dealings. All right, like a briefcase, were enough to activate the category of competition in memory. All right. That's supraliminal. They can be aware of that stimulus. They can look over and see the briefcase. So they're aware of it, but they're not aware of the influence. They're not aware of how seeing that briefcase might activate information about competition in memory. And because they're not aware of that potential influence, they can be affected by it. One method of priming involves, like this example of the briefcase, supraliminal methods that subtly activate a category in memory. Alternatively, we can use subliminal methods. Now, these methods typically require some kind of specialized apparatus, some kind of computer, or some kind of device that allows us to present stimuli, for example, so quickly or so subtly that a person can't necessarily be aware of what it is they saw or heard. Most of these subliminal priming tasks are visual, and so they involve presenting stimuli very quickly, so quickly, in fact, that a person isn't really necessarily aware of what they just saw. So, for example, in one subliminal visual priming task, they divide the computer screen into 4 sections, and then they really quickly flash images. These images are priming images. Now, And when I say really quickly, I mean sometimes these primes are proceed as quickly as 60 milliseconds. To give you a frame of reference, there are 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. Okay, so sometimes these stimuli are presented for 60 milliseconds, less than a tenth of a second. All right. What they'll then do is that, so let's say they're trying to prime them with elderly people. So they'll show them a picture of an elderly person, and then they'll use what's called a backward mask. Basically, they'll in the place of the picture of the elderly person, they'll put like a static image. And when I say a static image, I don't mean this image that's frozen. I mean an image literally of static. All right, in the place where the prime image, the image of the elderly person, was. All right, so prime image, if we're priming elderly people, then picture of an elderly person, backward mask, and then it goes away. Now, again, that all proceeds in sometimes less than a tenth of a second. So it just looks like a flash on the computer screen. So the task, the participants in the priming task have to, but basically their job is identify where on the screen the flash appeared. And as far as the participant is concerned, they're just performing a visual search task or a visual ID task. And so as far as they're concerned, they may not be aware that anything is out of the ordinary. They may not be aware that those images, that the flashes are of images. And so if you show them in a flashes over a certain period of time, then you increase the accessibility or the likelihood that the elderly stereotype becomes accessible in memory. So again, this is subliminal because, yes, in both of these examples, they're seeing a stimulus. The difference is with a subliminal stimulus, you're not aware of what you're seeing. You know you're seeing something, but you're not aware of what it is you're seeing. With supraliminal methods, you are aware of what you're seeing. You're just not aware of how that thing might affect you. With subliminal methods, you may know you're seeing something. You don't know what you're seeing, though. And in fact, oftentimes, when sometimes some participants will be able to correctly identify what they saw. And in those situations, those participants often get cut. All right? Because again, subliminal methods require participants not be aware of what it is they saw. So you've got supraliminal methods and you've got subliminal methods, and both methods subtly increase the accessibility of whatever it is you're trying to prime. So, in the briefcase example, you're trying to prime competitiveness, and you're using a supraliminal method to do so. They're aware of the briefcase, they're just not aware of how the briefcase might affect them or how it might make competition more accessible in memory. In the elderly prime example, they're aware of seeing something. They're just not aware of what it is they're seeing. They're not aware that they're seeing images of elderly people. But if you present them with enough of these quick subliminal images, then the chances of the elderly stereotype becoming more accessible in memory go up. In fact, some work by Barge and colleagues, and this is kind of dated work now, so it's, I think it came out in the 80s. As you increase the number of exposures to a subliminal stimulus, right? So if you go from 20 to 60 to 80 quick flashes of elderly people, the more presentations you have, the greater the chance of priming it. All right, and that is it for this video. So that covers, in very general, very broad terms, there's a whole lot of specificity to priming methods, and if you want to know more, let me know. And in fact, if you have any questions about any of this, obviously let me know. So you can send me an email or wait till class. But that is it for this video. So I will see you all later on.